Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa. I'm James Creedon. These are our headlines this evening. 50 Nigerian women who had been trafficked into Lebanon as undocumented workers have been rescued and returned home. This according to Nigeria's foreign minister. It's the latest knock-on effect on undocumented Africans in Lebanon in the midst of an economic crisis there. Also in Nigeria, how are frontline workers coping with the COVID-19 crisis? Africa's most populous nation has had over 7,000 cases. We'll bring you a report on the situation there. And the United States government is calling for a probe into the president of the African Development Bank. Washington is accusing Akin-wumi Adesina of ethical breaches. More on that later on in the show. Thank you for watching. Now we start in Lebanon, where African migrant workers are increasingly finding themselves in precarious situations. France 24 has already reported on Ethiopians who have found themselves on the streets, often without paperwork. This as Lebanon's economy is in near collapse. It's a similar situation for many Nigerians in the country. Many of them are left destitute right now. And in the latest twist, 50 Nigerian women who had been trafficked to Lebanon have been rescued and returned home. Now with all the details, here's Sam Olakoya in Lagos.
This is the latest instance the Nigerian government has repatriated Nigerian ladies trafficked to Lebanon. In the last 2 years, thousands of Nigerian ladies have been trafficked to Lebanon with promises of a better job, promises of better life. But most often when they get there, conditions are quite different. We've seen a number of videos of Nigerian ladies trafficked to Lebanon calling on the Nigerian government to come to their rescue because they have been held as slaves. Just last month, a Lebanese put up a Nigerian lady for sale on Facebook. The selling price was $1,000. Nigerians have been embarking on this kind of journey because condition back home is not just ideal. There's poverty, there are no jobs, so it's easy to trust anybody that tells them that condition outside the country will be better. In the past, the drift had been towards Europe, but then traveling to Europe has its own problems. They have to travel through the Sahara Desert to Libya, and this journey is very, very dangerous. And from Libya, if they survive this journey, from Libya, they have to undertake another very dangerous journey from Libya across the Mediterranean Sea, which is also very dangerous. This, of course, does not promise them entry into Europe. But now the Middle East is creating an attraction, because traffickers will procure tickets for them, they will procure visas for them, and so these Nigerians will travel to the Middle East, including Lebanon, in comfort. But when they get to Lebanon, the conditions are quite serious. They are not the ideal condition. Nigerians have been calling on the government to improve conditions back home so that Nigerians will not embark on this kind of journey that will take them into slavery. But it doesn't look as if things will get any better soon, because the economy is still bad and we are not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel anytime soon.
Now, staying in Nigeria, where the country's Centre for Disease Control is overseeing the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. With a population of 200 million people across 36 federal states, the organisation has a mammoth task on its hands. Testing capacity has increased considerably in the past couple of months, with thousands more cases of the virus now detected. Now, many of those cases are in the north of the country, where the lockdown has been extended as a result. Meanwhile, Abuja and Lagos are relaxing their lockdowns progressively. Chinwe Osunda has the details.
At the Center for Disease Control, Adejoke Akan-o supervises customer care agents. Every desk is connected to a telephone line or a social media platform. Here and in other centers across Nigeria, calls are treated on a 24-hour basis. Some are serious inquiries and others have more insulting tone.
It's not easy to manage, but what we do is we continually enlighten the public when they call us, pacify their fear, advise them that the best they can do for themselves right now is to prevent being infected.
Tests for COVID-19 is a priority in Nigeria, but it remains difficult to carry out in some communities. Many healthcare workers are afraid of going out because they do not know how people will react.
The lockdown has posed so many economic challenges to different families. So there are places we are welcome, there are places we are rejected, there are places we are bullied. But All those are part of the risk as a networker in this kind of situation.
According to the Center for Disease Control, less than 50,000 tests have been carried out so far. Screening for the virus remains a challenge for a population of 200 million people. Containment measures are also difficult to manage as the country moves to relax the lockdown.
What we're trying to move to now is move away from lock down the whole country to say, listen, this part of the country, this hotspot, has a significant number of cases, so let's put in the measures in that particular area while we find a way for the rest of the country.
To lower the spread of the virus, Nigeria is betting on the works of scientists. In less than 2 months, the number of laboratories across the country has been multiplied by 4.
Now, Zambia's president has pardoned a gay couple who were sentenced to 15 years in prison last November. Legislation that dates back to colonial times was used to convict the 2 men on criminal charges. The case saw the US ambassador go head-to-head with authorities in Zambia. Ambassador Daniel Foote said that the sentence was too harsh. Washington later had him withdrawn from his role because of the spat. Uganda's COVID-19 restrictions were eased up today, Tuesday. Private cars were allowed back on the roads. Many restaurants also reopened. Face masks, however, are still mandatory in public. Gyms and nightclubs will remain shut for now, and as for public transport, it will resume full activity from the 4th of June. That's a week from Thursday. Now, the US has asked the African Development Bank to launch an independent inquiry into the activities of its president, Akin-wumi Adesina. They suspect him of using his position for personal enrichment, amongst other accusations. Laurent Berstecker has more.
Unconvinced by Akin-wumi Adesina's acquittal, Washington is calling on the African Development Bank to initiate an in-depth investigation of the allegations using the services of an independent outside investigator. Back in January, a group of whistleblowers accused Adesina of embezzlement and preferential treatment. The Nigerian national, president of the African Development Bank since 2015, rejected the allegations and was later exonerated after an internal inquiry by the bank's ethics committee said the charges were unfounded. Washington's request for another investigation could now call the committee's credibility into question and have lasting repercussions on the bank's leadership. Adesina, who's supported by the African Union and ECOWAS, is seeking a second 5-year term at the helm of the financial institution, a feat that could be much more difficult to achieve without the backing of the US.
Hundreds of people gathered to mourn the death of Guinean singer Morrie Conte earlier on Tuesday. The funeral took place in his native country's capital, Conakry, to the sounds of traditional musical laments and keening. Conte had helped introduce African music to a world audience in the 1980s, but above all, he was adored in his native land. He had experimented through the 70s and 80s with electric beats, combining them with more traditional sounds. Conte then returned to a more traditional form of music towards the end of his career. Now we'll leave you with one of his signature songs, Mariama. Thanks for watching Eye on Africa, and good night.
Balimaya mimbi malila kumanyonye fansi ni tara Senegal akombi nyombe Dakar balimaya mimbi Senegal kumanyonye fansi Mariana Mariana na 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 Maria amabi mama papa de baje Mariana Mariana Mariana, Mariana, Maria, mon cœur, Mariana, nanana, Maria, à mon cœur, chérie, faut pas t'énerver, Mariana, 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 Mariana.